My name is James Midel, Midel. I just turned 40, which on one hand makes me happy because it brings a certain maturity, a certain experience. On the other hand, I know that with each passing year, there will be less and less time. But in 3 words, entrepreneur, investor, traveler, online creator for several years in my own country, and the idea to go beyond its borders. Not just territorial borders, but mental ones as well. In reality, the barrier is somewhere in your mind, in this part of the world where I was born, raised, and where I did business. People don't think globally. Back in school, people were still being held back. This stems from the difficult history of my country. However, thanks to that tough history, I think we've become, as a community and as a society, quite enterprising and resilient people. Still, unfortunately, there are some mental homework assignments we need to do. We need to work through certain things and go out into the world, not just with our products, not just with our services, but also with content. I think it's a rich experience for someone who was born and raised between the East and the West. 2 separate cultures, 2 different civilizations, a very difficult geopolitical position. If we manage to succeed here, I think it can be done elsewhere too. Definitely. I think that a person who, in my case, someone who did quite a lot in sports as a kid, quite a lot in business and a fair amount in investments, because I've been investing in real estate since I was 18, wanted to do something not only for himself, but also for others, to share his experience, his philosophy, a certain life wisdom that he didn't find at school, didn't find in the neighborhood, and didn't even find in books. What we are taught, of course, are great universal truths, religious and philosophical, often from 2 or 3 centuries ago, but the world has changed. And I think it's worth adapting the content and direction of our actions to this world. Of course, we should base ourselves on the traditions of every culture, but in reality, we need to find ourselves in this 21st century, which remains undiscovered for our minds. I trained in karate. In fact, I dabbled in most sports disciplines. I had innate ADHD, a tendency towards movement, towards sports. I couldn't sit still, but my bigger sports achievements were definitely in karate. Vice-European champion, multiple national championships. As a junior, and indeed the court, the kimono, the belt, the opponent, the competitor, they really shaped me. Every form of movement, every form of competition. So it's interesting, I recommend it, especially to parents who want to give their kids an education. This is above books, or at least on par with books. I would definitely emphasize upbringing through sports. So I think both give a lot. However, when it comes to training, my great masters, they used to say that you can repeat a given move 10,000 times on the court in comfortable conditions. But in a real fight, it will be move number 10,001, the one you didn't anticipate, the one you didn't foresee. I think it's similar with school. School flattens us, school somehow levels us out, smooths us over. It aims to standardize us. Meanwhile, the market, the street, competitions, they verify us. And it turns out that the one who really wins is the one who is truly different. This individuality, at least in this part of the world, was really missing in school. I think that sport teaches discipline, sport teaches hard work. Sport is very analogous to business. It actually gives results with a delayed effect, meaning you train for 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And only then do the results come. It's the same in business, it's the same in every other area of life. Compound interest works here as well, so you have to learn that when you sign up for swimming, for tennis, for horseback riding, you're completely new, you make very quick progress within a few weeks or months, but then reaching a competitive or master level takes several or even a dozen years of training, and most people can't endure that. Most people give up. Today we're taught to expect results within a minute, within an hour, the pill effect. In sports there is no pill effect. In sports there is the effect of hard work, and I think that's what I took from karate or from any other discipline, that to be good at something, you simply have to work for many years. Then comes muscle memory, then some spatial intelligence where you almost have control over space and time. That's definitely what sports give you, and in my case it had a fantastic effect on my mind, later on my business, and I think also Lego bricks. That's also a kind of discipline. It's incredible that you can build 2 million sets or different models out of 100 bricks, whatever you imagine in your mind. So I was raised, unfortunately, on small Lego sets because there wasn't much money in the family back then, on books, on sports, and of course at school. And I think that school is a fantastic institution. It's worth going through it, whether you're a few years old or a teenager, or even in college. However, in my case, the market and life verification was harsh. I gave up. It was a very conscious decision. At around 19 or 20 years old, I went to a very good university, dreaming of becoming a manager, a director. In some corporation, in some big company, that's how I was shaped by school as well. I dreamed of entrepreneurship. Even then, I had already been working for several years and had interrupted my coaching career. I think after 2 or 3 months of working, when I saw that, unfortunately, there wouldn't be any money in my sport. I was really drawn to entrepreneurship. It was a difficult choice. Karate remained as a pleasure, but unfortunately, I started working quite hard and intensely in business. I guess not. I just had the unpleasant experience of having to build that business from scratch, from the first $10, $50, $100. So in reality, there was nothing at first, just the initial ads back then, still in newspapers, in the press. Then came hanging banners on fences, stickers on cars. It was a very primitive form of advertising 20 to 25 years ago. The internet was just starting out, but it was also a fantastic medium. However, it wasn't any kind of unicorn, unfortunately not alone either. But in fact, there were 2 market successes somewhere in my early 20s. And that was both good and bad, on the one hand. Ambition, that childlike greed, extreme workaholism. 2 successes that came quite quickly, but took their toll because it was 10 years of very hard work. But building a company from scratch to several dozen branches, both companies across the country. I think every entrepreneur, or at least most entrepreneurs, especially young ones, struggle with a lack of capital. For everything. For infrastructure, for advertising, for taxes, for ongoing expenses, for goods, for logistics. So there was always a shortage of cash. The faster the company grew, the more cash was lacking. However, this snowball effect once again taught me that athletic patience, not to rush certain processes. And even so, it was moving very quickly because you can scale a business from one day to the next, really. You turn $1,000 into 2 into 4, trading anything today, whether online or in the real world. It's a matter of hard work, a matter of having a product that either enters the market or doesn't, that the market either buys or doesn't. However, I think that those several good years of work of building that capital taught me to respect money itself. I think that when someone borrows $200,000, they don't really know how much they're borrowing. If someone saves up those $200,000 from their own work, they'll manage that capital much better. That's why I don't fully believe in all those startups where one person has a great idea and another has some capital. Of course, they match up and it's a success. Maybe it works out in some percentage of cases, but I think that in most situations it could just be money burned because the side that receives the money doesn't really understand its value. And the person who has that dry capital doesn't really understand the business, the fire that someone wants to ignite. I'm an old school entrepreneur.